Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We're going to be looking at Impact Biomedical today.
Impact Biomedical.
Yeah, and you sent us some information on their recent stock activity, and also just what their business is all about, some technical analysis as well.
Right.
So yeah, we want to kind of take all this information, kind of unpack it, see what's most important to understand right now.
Absolutely.
So I guess the first thing that jumps out is the fact that IBO
Oh, yeah.
stock price is up.
Huge.
Hugely.
Yeah.
131.73% in the last 24 hours, bringing it to $4.96.
You don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
That's for sure.
We also see that it is a highly volatile stock with a beta of 3.15. What does that tell you right off the bat when you see a number like that?
Well, a beta over 1 means that it's more sensitive to market swings than the market itself. So in this case, 3.15, that's pretty volatile. So you're going to see, if the market goes up or down, it's going to move 3 times as much in that direction. So higher volatility, obviously higher risk, but also higher reward.
So it's like comparing like a sedan to a sports car.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
They're both going in the same direction, but one's a lot more touchy
Yeah.
on the gas and the brakes. Okay, so we also see that the company went IPO back in September of 2024. Shares offered at $3, and they began trading on the NYSE American market under the IBO ticker symbol.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting is that trading restrictions ended for some investors who received shares as a dividend from DSS.
Right.
And that ended on March 13th, 2025, so very recently.
Yeah.
Could this be connected at all to the recent price movement?
Well, I mean, it plays a role, right? Because all of a sudden you have a lot of shares that become unrestricted.
Yeah.
And, if they decide to sell, it's going to put downward pressure on it. But, if there's positive news
Right.
and growing interest coinciding with this, that selling pressure may be offset. It's hard to say if that's the reason.
Right.
But it definitely plays a role.
It's a factor to consider. Now, in terms of the company itself,
Sure.
Impact Biomedical is focused on developing both biopharmaceuticals and consumer healthcare products.
Right.
So this includes treatments for neurological, oncological, and immune-related diseases, as well as things like natural insect repellents and air purification systems.
Right.
So it seems like a pretty diverse
It is.
portfolio.
It is a diverse portfolio. On the surface, that's great,
Yeah.
having your hands in a lot of different things. But, investors are going to be looking for where are they really prioritizing? Do they have the resources to do all this?
Right.
So too much diversification too early, not always a good thing.
It can be a red flag.
It can be.
Okay. Now, the information also mentions that the company's leadership under the CEO, Frank D. Husel, is pursuing strategic planning and partnerships. So why is this important for a company like Impact Biomedical at this stage in the game?
Well, strategic planning is always important,
Sure.
but especially for a company that's recently gone public, it gives investors a framework for how they intend to achieve their goals and allocate their resources. And then partnerships are huge, especially at this stage.
Right.
They can provide funding, they can get R&D, manufacturing, all sorts of different things. Expertise, exactly.
That they might not have, yeah. Okay, so one of your sources suggests that the recent jump in price might be due to speculative interest in their technologies
Okay.
and potential partnerships, as well as positive market sentiment towards biotech. So when you hear that term speculative interest, how do you interpret that?
So basically what that means is they're buying based on hopes and expectations rather than the current financial performance of the company.
Future potential.
Exactly. It's like betting on a horse. You know that you think it has potential, but it hasn't won any races yet, so it's very risky.
Okay, so looking at the bigger picture here, despite this one-day gain, IBO stock has actually experienced a significant decline over the past year, 82.33%. And it's down 66.03% year to date.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile this long-term trend with this recent jump?
Right. Well, I mean, you have to look at it in context, right? The significant decline over the past year suggests there's been some underlying concerns.
Right.
Maybe some disappointments with their progress. And this recent jump could just be a short-term reaction to, some new...
Or just the sector in general?
Yeah, the sector in general.
Okay. Now, in terms of their financials, your documents also point out that the company reported no revenue in the last fiscal year.
Yeah.
and a net income loss of $4.34 million.
Mm.
How does this financial information factor into the overall picture, especially considering the positive stock movement today?
Right. Well, no revenue obviously means they're not selling anything,
Right.
which isn't unusual for a biotech company.
Yeah.
They're still developing their products. The net loss obviously means they're spending more money than they're bringing in,
Mm-hmm.
which, again, not unusual for this type of company, but, it's something to keep in mind. They're not profitable.
Right. And that even though the stock is going up, it's not based on
Not based on
earnings or anything like that.
Right.
So you shared some technical analysis with us as well.
Yeah.
And it mentions that short-term moving averages are likely below the current price, while long-term MAs are much lower.
Yeah.
So what does this tell us?
So moving averages, basically, they smooth out the daily price fluctuations to show you the general trend. So short-term MAs being below the current price
Okay.
tells us that the price has gone up very rapidly recently.
Okay.
And the fact that long-term MAs are much lower reinforces that the overall trend has been down
Right.
for a longer period.
Got it. So it also mentions the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, is likely in overbought territory. So in simple terms, what does that mean?
So RSI basically measures whether a stock has been overbought or oversold. So when it's in overbought territory, it's a sign that the price may have gone up too quickly
Okay.
and that a correction could be coming. So it's like running up a hill really fast. You need to stop and catch your breath.
Right.
So the stock might need to do the same thing.
So the technical analysis that you provided offers a cautious recommendation of hold or sell for risk-averse investors, while acknowledging potential short-term gains for speculative investors, but with a strong warning about high volatility and a lack of fundamental support. What stands out to you from this assessment?
Well, I think the key message here is to know your risk tolerance. If you don't like risk, this is probably not the stock for you.
Right.
But if you're willing to take on more risk, there could be some short-term gains.
Potentially.
But you got to be careful because it's a very volatile stock.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of fundamental support right now.
It's important to remember that this is all based on technical indicators and doesn't include fundamental analysis or potential future company news. Why is it crucial to consider both technical and fundamental factors when making investment decisions?
Because technical analysis is just one piece of the puzzle. It can help you identify trends,
Okay.
but it doesn't tell you everything you need to know. You also need to look at the fundamentals of the company. Their financials, their management team, their products, and you need to stay up to date on any news or events that could affect the stock price. So it's like if you're trying to predict the outcome of a game, you can look at the scoreboard, but you also need to know who the teams are and how they've been playing.
So the story of Impact Biomedical right now is a complex one, characterized by this recent price surge, but also some significant challenges.
Right.
The potential is there,
Yeah.
but there's also a lot of risk.
Exactly.
So what's fascinating here is the contrast between the short-term excitement and the longer-term trends. It really raises the question, what kind of investor are you?
That's right.
And what kind of risk are you comfortable with?
Exactly.
For further exploration, I think it would be good to delve into the specifics of their technologies, their patent portfolio, and any news regarding potential partnerships.
Absolutely.
Understanding the why behind their innovations could provide a deeper insight into their long-term prospects. So thanks for bringing Impact Biomedical to our attention. We hope this breakdown has given you a clearer understanding of the information.
My pleasure.
And if you found this deep dive helpful, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. We appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.